Let me know when you're either ready or I found that email. I just sent it to you.
I'm ready if Clay is ready.
Okay. Clay, go ahead and if you want to shoot me a chat and let me know when we're live, just to confirm everything's working in the conference room. All right, we're good to go.
Good afternoon. I'm Christina Rausch, and I would like to welcome you to the August 15th, 2024 Design Review Committee meeting. This is a 9-person committee whose primary function is to perform design review for projects located in one of the city's 3 designated design review areas: downtown, the riverfront, and the new hotel overlay zoning districts. This is a mandatory review voluntary compliance process with one exception for hotels seeking to skip council review. Hotels taking advantage of this incentive must receive a positive recommendation from the committee. All committee members and staff are participating virtually today. We are streaming live on our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link on the front page of the city website and also linked on the committee page. You can also watch the meeting on the city's YouTube channel, either live or recorded. The public can also listen to the meeting as well as give public comment by calling 855-925-2801 and entering code 9410. I will now take roll call. Jeremy Goldstein is absent. Catherine Ankaya.
Here.
Stephen Lee Johnson is absent. Thomas McLaughlin.
Here.
Michael McDonough.
Here.
Brian Moffitt.
Here.
Robin Rains is absent. Ricardo Sejo.
Here.
Okay, and we do have quorum today. Just going to pull up the agenda. Also wanted to make a suggestion that we have a discussion topic. Actually, hang on one second. I'll get the agenda pulled up here.
I have it on the screen too if you want to refer to that, Christina.
You want to move the DRC review scope till after our design review?
Yes, but let's approve the minutes first.
Okay. I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
You have to do our names individually. Sorry, Christina.
Oh, for approval of the minutes because
When we're doing
online.
virtual. Yeah, when we're doing virtual.
Okay. All right. Here
Sorry.
we go. All right. Catherine and Kaya.
Aye.
Michael McDonough.
Yes.
Thomas McLaughlin.
Aye.
Brian Moffitt.
Aye.
Ricardo Sejo.
Aye.
Okay. The motion for the minutes is approved unanimously. The next item.
I move that we discuss the DRC review scope after our formal design review items.
Second.
Right. So let me go through again. Catherine and Kaya.
Yes.
Michael McDonough.
Yes.
Thomas McLaughlin.
Yes.
Brian Moffitt.
Yes.
Ricardo Sejo.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion, and it was approved unanimously to move the DRC review scope to the end of the to item 4. All right, and our new business is a formal design review of 72 Rankin Avenue, Duke Substation, Level 1, which we've seen before. So I'll let Will take over.
Thanks, Christina. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for accommodating us moving this meeting virtually and being here today. I'll be presenting on this level 1 project, which is a new relocated Duke substation for 72 Rankin Ave behind Harrah's Cherokee Center. As Christina mentioned, the Design Review Committee has reviewed this informally before on February 15th, and this project's coming before you as a mandatory review, mandatory compliance measure. So it's a level 1 project being reviewed administratively by staff. That process is currently underway and under review. And in the meantime, the project is before you as it's located in the downtown. So a little bit of background. This actually ties in nicely to last month's meeting where we reviewed the Patton Avenue substation. So just to remind everyone that those projects are very much intertwined in that the one we reviewed last month for the temporary substation is a project that's being done to kind of provide the backup substation support for downtown while they rebuild this location. This project was kind of proposed a couple of years ago on the other side of Rankin Avenue, and it would have had a much higher visual impact to parts of downtown. So therefore, Duke Energy's proposed this different design and layout. The only disadvantage of that is that it uses the existing footprint of the substation behind Harris Cherokee Center and Thomas Wolfe Auditorium. So therefore, they have to take the old one offline completely in order to rebuild it inside. It's shifting north, including some city property along Hiawassee Street. And City Council at their August 27th meeting is considering a land exchange with Duke that would give them the land that they would need to build a substation. In exchange, the city would receive land behind Thomas Wolfe Auditorium that would help with backup house operations and loading, access, and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of moving parts here, but this is basically the design review for that new substation building. So you can see the site here on the site plans. It's at the corner of Rankin Avenue and Hiawassee Street, with Harrah's Cherokee Center being just to the west here. It's about a 4-acre site in total. It's a little bit smaller when you pare down just the site of the substation itself. It's in the traditional downtown core and also the intermediate height zone. So in addition to the actual substation facilities and infrastructure proposed, there are a combination of new elements such as a new sidewalk on Hiawassee Street that would be between 9.5 feet and 10 feet in width, and also replacing the existing sidewalks on Rankin Avenue. The ones on Rankin Avenue are 6 feet wide. That is what will be rebuilt. The project will be seeking approval to do a payment in a fee in lieu payment for that sidewalk that wouldn't get built. The site is pretty constrained between the existing right-of-way and the existing buildings. So there are elements of the site compliance like sidewalks and street trees that are being requested for different considerations. I'll talk a little bit more about the actual fence and the screening in a minute. That was a big part of the discussion at the informal review in February. Just to note some other features of the site are a few different access points to the site, two that are going to be sliding gates, and one is going to be a double swing gate for vehicular access. You can see the one kind of vehicular loop here, and then another access point up here into the substation facility. And then if you go to the landscape plans, there are plans for like an enhanced landscape area at the corner of Hiawassee and Rankin Avenue. That would include things like I believe it's one tree, multiple shrubs, and ornamental grasses. Part of that is to offset some of the street trees that are required on Rankin Avenue that the project is going to be requesting alternative compliance for through the Urban Forestry Commission. given the constraints of the property and the right of way, the more narrow sidewalks of 6 feet in width. There's no room in that design for tree grates in the sidewalk like you would have for a 10-foot wide sidewalk. So kind of the proposal is to have more landscaping in a different section of the site to offset what would be lost by not installing those street trees. So in addition to comments made at the design review committee in February 15, the project was also informally reviewed by the Downtown Commission on July 26. They mostly talked about kind of the timeline and rationale for the project between this project and the project at Patton Avenue. Also, what the land swap proposal between Duke Energy and the city of Asheville would mean for opportunities for the Thomas Wolfe Auditorium. And then kind of voicing general support for this new proposed location of the substation as opposed to the prior proposal from 2 years ago that would have had more visual impact to Lexington Avenue and other parts of downtown. So here are some renderings provided by the designers showing the site and the proposed fence screening. This is a pretty big departure from what was reviewed informally in February, which, if folks recall, was more kind of like brick walls, faux brick walls. I think the committee really picked up on the actual like vehicular gates proposed at the site and said to just run with that style and design and have it be screened but open, kind of having a design that doesn't feel like a wall, that has a little bit of I guess room behind it, so it kind of opens up the area a little bit more, even though it's just a substation. It's not a big faux brick wall next to you. So that's what's being proposed now. This is a view. Let me go back to the first page. Sorry. So this is the view from the corner of Hiawassee and Rankin Ave, kind of looking southwest at the back of Harrah's Cherokee Center. You can see the proposed wall, the gates along the street, the substation infrastructure, and then this is the enhanced planting area at the corner that was mentioned earlier. More views showing looking up Hiawassee Street, down Hiawassee, between the substation site and Harrah's, looking north, I guess down Rankin Avenue, looking at the site right across from the other side of Rankin. Similar view of between the Harrah's and this proposed substation. Aerial view of the site in entirety. You can see there are some retaining walls proposed along a majority of the site, given all the grade changes, slope of the site. The view along Hiawassee and the same. So as far as compatibility with the downtown design guidelines, there are surprisingly not a lot of guidelines pertaining to new substations, but there are guidelines that pertain to elements of the site, such as fences, walls, and that sort of thing. So the project complies with the project is supported by the guidelines regarding the recommended materials for walls, such as brick, stone, metal, or materials that are part of a unified development proposal and contribute to a unique sense of place, and also regarding landscaping measures to soften the pedestrian experience by providing additional plantings other than just the required minimum required, and things like pervious materials, etc. And then also using materials that resemble those in nearby historic buildings, help impart a sense of community in downtown across eras. Kind of that metal gates is kind of a traditional material that ties into this part of downtown. Therefore, staff supports the proposed design of this project and recommends approval as it's in alignment with those guidelines. That concludes my presentation. I'm glad to answer any questions, and we also have folks from the Duke Energy team here as well to answer any questions or provide more information.
Will, can you speak to whether the comments made by John Court were addressed?
Yeah, thanks for following up on that. Yes, so that was a while ago now that Mr. Court, who like I said, worked on the project on Harrah's way back in the day, wanted to make sure that the city was aware of any potential impacts that this project would have on the operations of the Harrah's and Tom School regarding things like fire access and that sort of thing. So that was something that the city design team had already been considering and looking into. So they were kind of aware of any of those implications and had already had design mitigation strategies in place that would head off any of those issues that Mr. Court had brought to our attention.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other comments, discussion items? Ricardo?
Yeah, I thought when we looked at this before, I thought we had said that we had asked for the fence to be for the wall to be a low wall with the fence on top, and then the fence be something in the style of what they were showing for the gates. And I also have a question about the on the, looks like these are detectable, those sort of strips in the sidewalk that look like they're almost like pavers in there. Looks like those are detectable warning surfaces based on the site plan. And looking at the one on the west end, it's outside, it's beyond that sidewalk connection to the Harris Center. Are we, is that entrance to Harris ever going to be used as an entrance, or is that just an emergency exit? Because I feel like that detectable warning should be east of the point where the ramp connects to the sidewalk. So that one on the top left. Right, yeah. If you zoom into that gray strip, that's the detectable warning surface. But somebody walking down the sidewalk is going to cross that, and if they are looking to go up the ramp into the center, then I think that causes some confusion.
Hi, this is Patrick Cole. I'm a civil engineer for Duke Energy. Yes, that is a detectable warning there in the site plan. We are providing ADA egress from the convention center there. My understanding is it's not a regular entrance or exit, but certainly I don't see any problem with or any issue with putting the warning strip at the end of the sidewalk there. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, either move the one you have east or put one at the end of the sidewalk. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Yep. That makes sense to me.
And anything on Will? Anything? I mean, am I not remembering that correctly? I thought we said we were looking for a short wall, and then the fence matching the gates. And then the other thing I had a comment on was where these are low walls, but I think what we had in mind was something a little bit taller. I mean, I would say something like, maybe no less than 24 inches, no more than 48 inches tall. So as you step around the site, I would kind of go by that rather than letting that just run into the ground like it is. And where you have outside corners, as looking from the exterior, from the outside in, any outside corners, I would rather see those resolved. So on page 3, Will, of the PDF, there's a you can see what I'm talking about, where you're coming in, yeah, right there. So that is, if you look at that from the other direction. Oh, the very last one I think shows it best, where I would say, have that wall return, have the wall on the right return and resolve that corner, and then at some point step down and continue. Just to kind of give that fence a base rather than this sort of papery feel.
Is there a reason we can't have the wall follow the grade and then the fence follow the grade instead of just?
Brian, we did
down?
discuss that. We had concerns about matching the grade perfectly and just kind of constructability issues and costs associated with that. But we did update the renderings and unfortunately sent the wrong ones. We were proposing to have the top of the fence match the slope. So we were going to cut those to match the grade so that they'd be at one smooth level. And I can share my screen to show that.
Yeah, go right ahead, Justin, if you can do that.
May I offer a suggestion that cap on that wall, maybe trim it down. It feels a little bit like it's trying too hard to be a cap. I mean, do we even need to articulate the top of the wall with that heavy cap? Why not just let the wall come up and end?
Patrick, could you speak to that?
That's possible. I'm not the wall designer, so I would have to defer to the designer on that.
I did talk to the wall designer, and the side panels are precast, so you can't mount to it with the fence. And then the cap was structural for the fence posts, and that's why it's so beefy.
All right. Well, I would suggest maybe the width of the cap be closer to the width of the wall below it. It looks like it's like a really, really, really heavy cap that's only like 12 inches above the ground. It's just a little bit more complicated probably than it needs to be. Can you speak to the retaining walls that are rendered in stone, lining the walkway up to the rehearsal rooms in the back? Will those be actual boulders just like the existing?
No, I don't think we're planning to match the rock wall. That's just what was left in there. If you have recommendations or any guidance for materials you think would blend in there, we would definitely be open to suggestions.
Well, I'd say if you're gonna do stone, you're up against some pretty cool dramatic boulders, and don't do a half-ass job. Like, either do nice real stone or don't do stone. Does anybody else feel the same way?
I agree 100%.
Mhm.
Like a cast in place concrete, a really well done cast in place concrete or something, or you try to. I don't think you can match that. I just don't, and I think if you try to do something kind of like it but not like it, it's not. You're not going to pull it off.
I agree with that.
I agree as well. And I think we may have brought that up last time.
Yeah, last thing we want to see is a fake stone wall, either pressed concrete or veneer. So and keep it as low as it needs to be to actually retain and hold the handrail. And I wonder if the retaining wall that is between the walkway and the driveway even needs to be there. It looks like both surfaces are at the same grade, and maybe just more robust planting there instead of investing so much in a wall. Does anybody feel?
Patrick, that's not, is the retaining wall on the left needed for the handrail or to hold a handrail?
Those both are retaining. It's about a 2 foot drop. Yeah, it's about a 2 foot drop for both of those walls in grade.
So you could just bring the retaining wall up high enough to retain the grade and then let handrail and post rise above that?
Yeah, we can do that.
Again, if you were doing really good rock work, that'd be cool, but it sounds like you probably are not going to. So maybe just keep it simple, let it hold the dirt back, and then again, put some more plants in there instead.
And I think we would, so if I'm following you, we would want to keep the retaining wall between the drive and the walk. But you're suggesting increase that height.
No, the other way around. If there's only a 2 foot grade change between the driveway and the walkway, then just build a 2 foot high retaining wall and then set your rail on top of it, or do a really nice wall. I'm not hearing any description of what that wall is, and I'm afraid it's going to be kind of a cheesy wall. So don't call a whole lot of attention to a cheesy wall.
Yeah.
Can you just maybe match what you have below the fencing?
Yeah, we certainly can. And what's called out on the site plan is a concrete wall for those. These are just some older renderings. We didn't update that portion of it.
So what is it you were intending to do? Concrete, formed
Cast in
concrete?
place. Yeah, cast in place concrete wall.
And that wall on towards the existing building would be handrail height-ish?
Yeah, it would need to be to hold up the grade. But at the very end, when it lowers down, we could drop down the wall, but it might make sense to keep it elevated so we can have a consistent handrail mount to the wall.
And if it were me, I'd rather see you spend way more money on plants there than on kind of concrete.
I agree with that.
Michael, I liked your idea for having the railing mounted vertical on the wall rather than horizontally.
Yeah, assuming it was going to be a not so nice wall. And if we did the rail on top of the wall, hopefully there'd be more plantings there. Take that money out of wall building and put it into buying plants. If they fit, it's kind of hard to tell how much room there is.
And that isn't an overhang there too, that we're going right up against.
What is the width of that strip of planting in the wall on the side closer to the substation?
Let's see, I can measure it.
I have it as well. It tapers down all the way to like a foot, but at the widest portion, it is around 6 feet.
That's a nice amount of space. You could also consider another tree up there, right there by the sidewalk, like you have down on the corner.
Actually, if you compare the engineered site plans, they look substantially different in this rendering.
Yeah, I always feel like the renderings, we like to do things in renderings that we don't do in the plans.
Well, in the rendering, it shows a very narrow planting area between the sidewalk and driveway, but the site plan shows a much wider area.
6 feet, yeah.
The furthest northwest corner planting did expand on the CAD versus the model version. But the distance between the backup curb and the retaining wall with the substation is consistent between both.
So in the rendering where you show just some ground cover and a sedge-like plant, you could actually fit a tree now then, right?
I believe so.
Cool.
And that is right up against the substation perimeter. So
We're talking about on the
The other
base
side
of
of
the
the.
hand, the ramp, the ADA ramp.
oh, okay.
Mhm.
Right there. My experience is that pathway, the musicians come in and out that way. So it's a nice element. It's a nice way to enter the building for people that perform and stuff. So I'd like to see it, nice, pathway in. And there's no landscaping shown to the right of that towards the existing building. So again, just take some of your stone and concrete money and put it into the plant budget. My experience is that pathway, the musicians come in and out that way. So it's
I like that idea too, Michael. So the vegetation that's shown in the rendering against the Harris Center, it looks like grass on my screen right now, but could you maybe pull up the landscape plan? What is that? Is that proposed to be plants or stone?
It will be left as is.
Okay.
Currently, there's a couple small trees and then some mulch and turf.
Yeah, I pulled up Google Earth and there's some boulders laying there. I mean, you could just pepper that hillside with some boulders. Yeah. That's pretty much my comments. Just kind of simplify the walls, either do them really nicely or just keep them minimal and go for plants and nice railings instead.
I like that too. I just have a quick question about the Magnolia stellata. I'd be in favor of a different tree. They bloom so early and they always get burned by the frost here in Asheville. So I know that's probably why you selected it for the flower, but just always, it's just a tough one here. So maybe there's an option to do at that corner down there by Hiawassee and Rankin, maybe a multi-stem service berry. You could do the same one then up further towards the Civic Center. But I would suggest that instead of the magnolia. And then I do like the spirabolus, and this is a question I guess for Will. A lot of these are herbaceous plants, like the grasses and the perennials. When they're at a hotel or something, I think there's more of a desire to keep them looking good because we have guests coming in and out. But these plants will need quite a bit of establishment with, water to establish them so they look good and are healthy. How does that work for a spot like this without irrigation?
The contractor usually waters them the first season, maybe two, and then once they get established, they're native, so they're supposed and drought resistant, so they're supposed to be fine on their own.
Great, thank you.
And I think I did look at adding a service berry there, but they exceed a certain height that's recommended around substations. So if we do go that route, it will have to be limbed up at, I think, 8 feet tall.
She said one of the multi-stem, the little amelanchiers are shorter than the single stem, taller ones.
Okay, I'll look into that.
I knew something.
Nice work, Brian.
So this is going to be an 8-foot fence, correct?
That's correct.
Is that measured from the top of the wall or from grade?
That's a good question. Actually, I believe it would be from grade.
Because you're showing now, Justin, that you're keeping the fence with the grade, correct? So it's actually going to be a little taller, but it's going to average 8, or it's going to be 8 feet at the minimum from the grade.
That's right. We would want the lowest point to be 8 feet.
Okay.
And just so I'm hearing Ricardo's comments correctly, so in this particular area, you would recommend like raising up this last portion to match
Yes.
the turn?
Yeah, I would, in fact, I would say don't have anything less than 2 feet of wall.
Okay.
I think where the wall just sort of pinches into the sidewalk, I don't know, there's just no resolution. I would say keep at least 2 feet of wall at all times above the sidewalk, so you step the wall as you need to, maintaining that. I don't know about the fence following the grade. I think I would rather see it straight since the wall is stepped. I think certainly having the fence follow the grade but not the wall. I think I would just rather see the wall, but I defer to my fellow committee members on that.
Didn't I hear that the wall was going to slope with the grade too? Or is the
Yeah.
wall going to?
Yeah, but no, not the wall. The fence will follow the grade, but not the wall.
Oh,
I think Justin, I appreciate you doing that and showing that. That is what we asked for, but I think I'm almost with Ricardo. Ricardo, close your ears. I'm going to agree with you. I think you either do both, where they're running in parallel, so you slope the wall with the grade, and I understand that might be difficult and costly, or you just go ahead and step the fence with the wall. With the right now in that rendering, now that I see what I asked for, I don't think I like it as good because it looks weird to have the wall popping, the lower wall popping down and the fence kind of, I don't know, doing its own thing.
Yeah.
Ricardo, I don't mind this fence and looking different than the gate.
I don't mind it either. I just wanted to bring it up because that's what I remembered. But when I saw this, like, look, it's a fence. It's okay. And I don't know that I've ever spent so much time looking at a fence. One question though, there is that there are some red spots on the side of the wall in the renderings. Is that intended to be like thin brick or something like that?
No, I'm not certain why we left it that color. That's going to be the vertical beams for the retaining wall. We did discuss because they were probably left that color because that's what they would rust to, since it would just be a natural steel. But we did discuss having those either galvanized or painted to blend in better.
I would definitely support that.
You're going to beat the galvan if those are pile drive. They beat the galvanized off of them. Lessons learned: don't do that. Don't pay for it. Just paint them.
So what are we recommending for the fence and the wall? Could someone summarize that?
I'm trying to track all of our recommendations. Right now, what I've got is that not what Justin has on his screen, but what was presented in our materials, with the wall stepping and the fence stepping, is what they go with. However, a little differently than what they've got shown in the materials. So this is what I've got. Let's make sure I've got my conditions. That the wall, the retaining wall, be no less than 2 feet above the adjacent public grade. That was your recommendation, right, Ricardo?
Yeah, and no more than 4.
No more than 4.
Just
okay.
in case somebody gets any bright ideas.
Okay, and then so I've got that as a condition. The applicant would work to reduce the width of the cap. We understand they can't reduce the depth of the cap for the structural issue, but try to reduce the width of the cap, the overhang over that wall, And then on the ramp that they would use cast in place or some other material for the retaining wall portion, and then revise the pedestrian side to just a standalone rail, right? And provide as much landscaping material as possible. And then finally, that the applicant work to, I'm going to get the species wrong, Catherine, revise the magnolia to something similar to a multi-stem service berry. Those are my conditions so far. Does that match what everybody said?
Ryan,
think-
sorry, Brian, did you get turning the corner with the wall?
Yeah.
I will.
And the
Also adding the tree. Did you say?
yes, adding the tree and then the ADA warning detectable paver.
Yep, yep. On the ramp, at the end of the ramp.
Thank you.
One thing to look at for that overhang on the cap, it might be if you still need the width of that cap for structural purposes, you can look at pushing it back a little bit, even if it's a little bit of center, so you don't get the overhang on the exterior side, or at least not as prominent as it is now. But I don't know what that's going to mean with the eccentric placement, but that's just a suggestion.
Okay.
All right, fantastic review of a fence, guys.
Grief.
Do we want to open up to public comment now?
Yes. Let's
Can
open
I
it
ask
up
one more
to-
clarifying question?
Yeah.
Did you all also want to see a wall underneath the fence on the front portion of Rankin? I think Ricardo was mentioning that earlier, potentially.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. No, I think that's all right because, especially with the gates there, it actually seems to make more sense to bring the fence all the way down there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Questions? Okay, let's open it up for public comment at 1:13 p.m.
Looks like we have one caller on the line with their hand raised to give comment. I'm gonna unmute them now, and they should be notified that they can start speaking to get public comment. I'm not sure if you're still there. Caller with number ending 7632, are you there to give any comments? Let's give it 1 second.
They have the same last 4 digits as me.
They do. Maybe it's you. Okay. Sounds like maybe that's not a public comment. So I think that's all the folks we have in the queue to give public comment.
Okay, let's close for public comment at 1:14 p.m. And then, do we have a motion to approve with recommendations?
I'm going to try. All right, Mark,
Conditions.
set, go. I think I'm unmuted. Yep. Okay. I move to recommend approval of the Vanderbilt substation project as presented based on the site plans, elevations, and materials submitted and discussions heard during this review. I find that the project meets the intent of the downtown design guidelines subject to the following conditions. One, that the applicant change the retaining wall along the ramp to cast in place or some other material. 2, that the applicant change the stone wall separating the ramp and the vehicular access to a rail. I'm skipping around my own stuff here. Hold on. That with that change, the applicant investigate adding an additional tree at the end of the ramp. Good so far. That the applicant not do that. Work to reduce the width of the cap overhang on the public facing side. put it that way, that the applicant ensure that the low retaining wall facing the public side is no less than 2 feet and no more than 4 feet above grade. That as the retaining walls approach the corner, where they're above the grade, that it actually turns the corner, that the applicant revise the ADA detectable location, and that the applicant replace the proposed magnolia with something similar to a multi-stem serviceberry or other appropriate tree.
And
Second.
apple tree near the ramp going into the back of the Civic Center.
I swear I thought I got that one.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Did
You
I?
got
Did
it. You got
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
A second.
Yeah, I don't know.
Chair, before we take roll call vote, so I think the person trying to give the public comment is still on the line trying to give public comment. Do you want to try to reopen public comment and see if we can't get them connected here?
Okay, let's reopen for public comment at 1:17 p.m.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to try to reestablish the phone connection in the meeting. But I had all these things worked out earlier. We haven't done this in a while, and our good planning tech who was handling this back in the day has gone on to bigger and brighter things. So I was kind of winging it, but we have, I think, that number connected. I'm going to let's see. One second. The person has seemed to either rejoining now. Let's go 1 minute. Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna try to connect them. Okay, caller, you should be connected. Can you speak? I wonder if it's an issue on our end here.
While we're waiting on that, I just want to express some appreciation for Justin and his team. I know there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen on a project like this, and even before you get to design issues, this whole project's been a lot of going back and forth. So way to stick with it and way to be patient, and appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael. I would also say the same about you. Thanks for the good feedback, and I think you guys pushed us in a much better direction than what we were originally proposing. So thank you all for that.
All right, I'm going to patch the caller in through my desk phone here, so bear with me. Hey, Jared, are you there?
Yes, Mr. Will.
All right, you should be patched in through my speakerphone, through my microphone, and hopefully it hooks in here. You okay?
Okay. Am I speaking? Am I live?
You are live.
All right. First off, I got to say thank you to Will for sticking to the public comment and making sure it's possible. These nerds get us addicted, and then it's so hard to keep up with all the changes. And I also want to say thank you to DRC for all the thoughtful comment on this project. It's obvious that you put in a lot of time and are paying attention to the details. And this is a project in our downtown core. So It's super important to our city. And all of that being said, I also wanted to talk real quick about DRC and the value it provides. In this case, we have a public utility which has a unique position in our society where it is allowed a regulated monopoly to provide public good. And this project being right in downtown, it overlaps not with the production of a public good of a utility, but also potentially an aesthetic public good in an area of town that I know is well traversed by foot traffic coming to and from events at the Cherokee Center. Now, with that in mind, and this is not a critique of DRC, but really the applicant, this project appears completely lacking in all creativity and is an overly simplistic solution of a use of land right in the middle of our downtown. And I applaud DRC for making an iterative approach to be well tracked and documented. And my comments may fall out of the guidelines, but the Cherokee Center itself is a very unique piece of architecture. I'm not like an architecture specialist, but I believe it's considered brutalist. And it seems somewhat applicable that a brutalist philosophy has been used in this area, and I don't think it was integrated at all into, I mean, the fence is like essentially prison design. So I know I'm being rough, but this is the only chance for public comment, and I would like to see it not be approved because it really is not in keeping with the downtown core or the adjacent building, and I think we can do better. So that's my public comment, and I really appreciate you, DRC. You guys are doing great work.
Alrighty, thanks, Jared.
Is there a picture of the existing? I think it, I hear the comments and I think it's relative to what's there now. And essentially we have no control over the equipment. And in my opinion, the equipment is much leaner and cleaner and less fussy. So to me, this was more of a review of the enclosure and the 8-foot high enclosure around it. Does everybody else kind of feel the same way?
Well, the equipment that we're seeing, as I recall, is not exactly what's going to be there, right?
Yeah, it's not 100% to scale, but it's a general idea.
Yeah, so not that I'm necessarily, commenting on it, just reacting to your comment, Michael. That with the final product is probably not going to look like this, but our review is really limited to the enclosure, like you said. So
yeah, so it's a matter of, is the enclosure a solid wall? The word brutal was used, a brutalist opaque enclosure, or something more transparent that doesn't feel so looming over the sidewalk. And I guess we've evolved that maybe letting the site breathe a little bit instead of having a 8-foot tall solid wall looming over the sidewalk might be more pedestrian friendly.
I think looking at a picture of what's there now is very telling. That the substation that's there, it's a chain link fence enclosure, and there's zero landscaping, and this isn't supposed to be, or this isn't some architectural masterpiece, but it's also not intended to be. But this is, I think, cleaner, and the landscaping adds to it. The landscaping that they're going to add is going to enhance that even further. So
I appreciate the public comment, and I'd like to expand on Michael and Ricardo, what you guys are talking about. So when we are dealing with a utility, and it's a utility that I think has honestly worked hard to be a good partner with the city and with the DRC on this particular project. As we mentioned when we started this, this is not, in my mind, this has not been the only project. It's actually been one of three topics of discussion that we've been reviewing over the past 5 years. It's related to the substation at the what's going to become one of our prime gateways into town, the gas insulated substation that and the temporary substation, this substation, and even the proposed substation across the street from this one, and the the one that got us all twisted up. So Duke has worked pretty hard on all of these different proposals. They've moved sites several times, and really, I think there's been a good partnership between the design community, the city, and Duke, in moving these parts and pieces around at some significant expense on Duke's part. They've paid for design time several times for some of these projects. So I appreciate what they've done regarding what we have and whether it should be. So my take on a utility thing like this is that I don't want it to be pretend architecture. And I also don't want it to take away from the actual architecture that is. So I believe that we have arrived at a reasonable accommodation here, where this is a light touch. I think is the way I would put it. In where we're really trying to minimize as much as we can this utility equipment on the pedestrian environment. And I think trying to put some kind of architectural solution for this screening was too heavy, and it actually would start compete with when it wasn't even a building. So I really think, I hate to say least worst option, but in some cases that's what we do with some of these. And actually, I think this is pretty decent for what we're the kind of stuff that we're dealing with. And I'm appreciative. I'll echo Michael. I think the Duke team has worked really hard. When you think of some of the things that we were starting with the I don't remember how many stories high retaining wall on Lexington, and all the trees gone.
Yeah.
To get to here, I'm pretty tickled.
I think you described it best with the term light touch.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna pop in and try not to be negative, Nancy, but I agree. I think we've settled with what we were given. I agree with Ricardo and Michael and Brian's comments that we've landed on something nice from where we started. But I did just want to comment that when the project was on the site across the street, I believe we had a virtual meeting, and I think over the course of this project, there's been several comments as to, is there a design member on the team? And I think there are some really cool substations in other cities, and this is minimal, and it's I think improved quite a bit from where we started. But to the caller's comments, that I understand wanting more. There's always something cooler that you could do, but I think from what we were given and with cost constraints that I'm sure Duke is facing, that this project has come a long way and is going to be much nicer than what was originally proposed. So those are my comments.
So we have a motion and a second on the table still.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to take a roll call vote. Let's see, go back. Catherine and Kaya?
Yes.
Thomas McLaughlin?
Yes.
Michael McDonough?
Yes.
Brian Moffett,
Yes.
Ricardo Sefa.
Yes.
So we have unanimous approval. Um, and the, thank you all for your time. Okay, so I'm going to take a roll call vote.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Catherine and Kaya? Yes. And the next agenda item.
So, Chair, just I had notified about recusing myself on this. Just to make it easy, if I recuse myself, we still have quorum, yeah?
That's correct.
Well, then why don't I just recuse myself since Robin is my domestic partner and her firm is the architect of record on this project. And rather than having a lengthy discussion on it, if we have quorum anyway, then I think it's just easier for me to recuse myself.
I'll make a motion that Ricardo Sejo recuses himself from this consideration of this application.
Second.
Take a roll call approval. Catherine and Kaya?
Yes.
Thomas McLaughlin?
Yep.
Brian Moffett?
Yes.
Michael McDonough?
Yes.
Motion is approved. Move on to the presentation. Will.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon again, everyone. So this is a proposal for a new hotel in the existing Grove Arcade building. So this is a mandatory review, mandatory compliance measure for hotels seeking to be approved without having to go to City Council. So the site itself is the existing Grove Arcade. It's about a 1.5 acre site in kind of northern part of the historic downtown, bounded by Page, Battery Park, O. Henry Avenues, and Battle Square. All of those streets are identified as key pedestrian streets in the downtown zoning district. Well, history on the site itself. Grove Arcade is a local historic landmark. It was constructed and finished in 1929 by E.W. Grove. It was one of the country's first indoor shopping malls. It was sold to the federal government during World War II, and it housed the National Climatic Data Center until 1995. Kind of as part of the downtown revitalization, it was acquired by the city in 97 and signed a almost 200-year lease with the Grove Arcade Public Market Foundation, which was the entity that essentially renovated and restored the building where it opened in 2002. It has commercial uses on the ground floor that I'm sure everyone's familiar with. And then on the upper stories, there are office uses on the second floor and residential uses on the third, fourth, and fifth floors. And an underground parking level beneath the building as well. So essentially what's being proposed is that existing residential units on the building's third, fourth, and fifth floors would be converted into a total of a maximum of 35 guest rooms. The building, the Grove Arcade site, is within the hotel overlay for small hotels, which are between 7 and 35 guest rooms. So this is just the kind of overall site plan. You can see here. I'll note that the parking is. I didn't notice it even here until looking at these plans that there is a underground parking level that's accessible off of O. Henry Avenue, and then there's some underground subterranean parking here. Applicants identified the 18 required off-street parking spaces that would be allocated for those uses. We've also submitted floor plans of the third floor and then fourth and fifth floors. They have not, as of yet, identified which rooms exactly the hotel guest rooms will be located within. That is part of outstanding information that's required as part of the level 1 site plan review that's being reviewed by staff. Has been reviewed by staff with comments returned to the applicant a couple of weeks ago. That is essentially the extent of the proposed project itself. There are no exterior or site changes proposed to the building. The interior changes are anticipated to be minor in nature. The local landmark designation of the property would only require a review by the city's Historic Resources Commission for changes to the exterior of the building. Though there may be additional requirements for the State Historic Preservation Office to review any interior changes. There is a kind of a layer cake of regulations and easements, leases, and ownership entities and arrangements on this site. So it's a little confusing. Thankfully, we only have to focus on design and not the legal aspects of the different controlling measures. But just to say, there are some additional approvals that would likely be needed by the project, depending on the scope of their proposed changes to the interior of the building. Overall, the staff report lays out that aspects of the project that are supported by the downtown design guidelines. These include elements that are existing to the building already, that include things like street furnishings, building entrances, the primary pedestrian entrances on frontage lines and key pedestrian streets, recessed principal entrances, awnings and canopies to shelter pedestrians from sun and rain. The use of doors with large areas of glass and wood or metal frame, and also that primary entrance should be considered as an important component of a unified building front. It should align with neighboring historic structures. Using materials that are consistent and resemble those of nearby historic buildings, incorporating materials of like, size, shape, type, and color that are prominent in the context of the block. And then some elements regarding the extent of the project as far as its lack of impact on the exterior of the building, including respecting the essential original design characteristics of the building, and that the original size and shape of elements like windows and storefronts, etc., are maintained, and that basic material characteristics of the building have been maintained as well. The project is pending a future review by the Downtown Commission at their discretion at their next meeting later this month. And otherwise, staff supports the overall project as it's in alignment with guidelines as proposed, recommends approval. I know we also have the applicant with us today to give any more information and answer any questions you might have. I'd be glad to answer any questions you have as well.
I can go ahead and talk if you want to hear from the applicant.
Do you want to hear from the applicant, Chair, or do you want to, any questions for staff first?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, Mr. Swords, if you want to present any.
That's the first
information.
Yeah, so I think the way Will described it as a layer cake of regulations that we have to navigate is, that's a good visualization of it. But luckily, DRC's job is really easy because we're not proposing any design changes. My understanding, there's essentially nothing for this board to review. I mean, no one wants to change the Grove Arcade. It's a centerpiece of our downtown. It is, in many ways, I think, is a model for the design guidelines themselves. So obviously we're not proposing any changes. And I really request quite simply that someone make a motion to recommend approval of the existing design of the Grove Arcade.
This won't change my vote, but I'm just curious, the existing residential units, are they all currently occupied?
I don't know the answer to that question. Will did mention that we owe the city a, just an enumeration of which units we're proposing to be part of the hotel use. And I do have that, but I don't know which ones are occupied and which are not. And, my understanding too is that, the plan is not to simply kick everyone out and use, do the hotel use immediately. It will be in part determined by, who's moving out when leases are up, that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Jesse, how will you manage, or what's the plan for managing like parking, bringing in luggage?
Yeah, so that's addressed in the hotel overlay guidelines, or rather the zoning ordinance. In the underground parking garage, we have designated a spot. Hotels in the downtown and in the River Arts District have to have a guest loading and unloading area that's not in a public right of way. So this one will have that in the parking garage underneath. And it's shown on this plan sheet that's on the screen right now.
So you don't anticipate like cars piling up outside or around the project?
That's the purpose of the loading zone. So
sure, there'll be signage or something.
It'll be managed by, during the reservation process, people will know where to go.
Okay.
When we used to have an office there, we had we had to have the little garage clicker. My kids still thought I was Batman. To get in the basement for the little swinging gate. How will I'm just curious. How will hotel guests get down into the parking garage?
I don't actually know the answer to that question either, but the property management company that manages it is on site, and that will be, part of their, operations. So it'll be up to them to determine that.
Okay. Well, to basically to Christina's question, this is more of an operations question, but it would affect, if they have to park and go pick up a whatever to get in. I know there's different ways to manage those. I've been in different ones. Maybe they're just going to change the way you access the basement. I'm not sure. As long as it's not affecting the exterior of the building, it really doesn't matter as far as we just, want to make sure that we understand how it works.
Sure. Any other questions?
Does anyone else on the design review committee have comments or questions? All right. Would we like?
I feel like this one's a trap. Like we're like essentially going to approve another hotel, but we are only tasked with reviewing design issues, and there are really no design issues. So yeah.
This is Jeff Dalton, and I was the architect for the project in 98. This is an aside and not all that important, but when we first started on this project in 1996, the original plan was to make it a hotel. And it laid out perfectly. There was an interior hallway around each quadrant, and it laid out perfectly for a hotel. And the response from There's no demand for a hotel in downtown Asheville. So, you know, there hadn't been one built downtown in 40 years. So anyway, no one wanted a hotel in Asheville in 1996. But anyway.
Times have changed.
It's not a trap, Michael.
Do you open public comment, Chair?
Let's open it to public comment at 1:46 p.m.
Thank you. I don't see any callers in the queue asking to speak.
Well, then we will close for public comment at 1:46 p.m. And we have
Chair,
a motion.
Chair, I move to recommend approval of the Grove Arcade Hotel project as presented based on site plans, floor plans, and materials submitted and the discussions heard during this review. Find that the project meets the intent of the downtown design guidelines.
Do we want to, like right now, the rooms, like there's some unknowns. And I assume even when the unknowns became knowns that it won't impact the skin of the building, but do we want to put a caveat that since
It's part of their submission, Michael, that they're not changing the exterior of the building. If they make any modifications to that, then that would change the application and it would have to come back.
We know what the rooms are now. We didn't when we submitted that.
Yeah, it would also have to go in front of HRC if we did any changes to the exterior. So there would be kind of multiple layers to that.
And SHPO. Yep.
A second.
A second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. I will take a roll call vote. Catherine and Kaya.
Yes.
Thomas McLaughlin.
Yes.
Michael McDonough.
yes,
Brian Moffitt.
Yes.
Do we have?
And you have to vote too, Christina.
Okay. Yes. All right. So we have approval of the motion. Thank you to the applicant.
Thank you.
It's always nice to dodge the bullets of highly controversial projects.
And the next agenda item is the future discussion topics. So we have, or the DRC review scope. This is, we had a recommendation that we just wanted to discuss as a group about whether we feel the design review committee maybe, how should I phrase this? How do we feel about level 1 projects? And is there any room for changing the criteria for level 1 projects that we review? Will, you may be able to clarify better, but I think the suggestion was that there are some small projects that we review that that a thought was that they may or may not be large enough for us to be reviewing.
Well, so I guess the current way it works is that the design review committee reviews any project that's considered a major work in the downtown or riverfront, and then also new hotel projects there and in the hotel overlays outside of those areas. Major works are basically things that either significantly alter the exterior of existing buildings or provide a certain size addition, as well as any new construction in addition to that. So you kind of see we kind of run the gamut of different review types and scales. We've seen, huge 300,000 square foot building proposals, and we've seen just minor rehabilitations and changes to storefronts. So that's kind of the spectrum that the DRC works within. I guess it was brought to the chair's attention that there can be a conversation, not by staff, but from other folks in the community about changing the scope of that review, or maybe expediency, or for different projects or project types, based on other merits, or either speed up their review, or reallocate our resources if the reviews are seen as unnecessary in some ways, or that kind of thing. So I think that's the conversation that we can have today. Don't have to make any decisions today, but that was kind of the question that was being asked, and this is an opportunity to talk about that.
So was the question asked by just a random citizen, or is it someone, a frustrated applicant, or what's generating this on the agenda?
So it's asked from a member of another board and commission on the city.
And can you maybe articulate a recent project that might be of a scale that is hoped that we remove from our scope?
This is part of a bigger topic. This goes into planning and zoning commissioners speaking to the paper about that we don't need the DRC, and that we're the reason that everything costs too much.
So the request is that we raise the threshold for our review higher, so other projects slide under without our review. And I'm just like, which projects recently have we reviewed which could be considered in the future falling below our threshold?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. I can clarify that. That's a good question. I kind of may have missed the mark on that a little bit. So I think the proposal is perhaps to consider only reviewing level 2 and 3 projects. So we have level 1, level 2, level 3. For instance, the substation was a level 1 project because it's certain square footage is below 20,000 feet in the downtown. So that projects that are under 20,000 square feet floor area are level 1, and also projects that have fewer than 20 units proposed are level 1. So those are kind of smaller projects. Then level 2s require the technical review committee to review them, and level 3s are conditional zonings. So the proposal would be that the DRC still review those projects, but not level 1s, and also the potential to exempt projects that have affordable housing as part of their criteria, as maybe a way to incentivize affordable housing or to speed up the review and the time and maybe the cost of having architects and designers at these meetings and that kind of thing for affordable projects.
Well, if the threshold is level 1, 2, or 3, I think the fact that the substation was level 1, and I think it's essential that there be design review for such a visible public project. So I'd say I wouldn't change a thing in terms of the levels, and then in terms of affordable housing. I know I'm just diving in here. The definition of what's affordable housing is pretty fluid. So I think we're stepping into a real mess if we start to even go there until someone defines that better.
I think people that live in affordable housing deserve beautiful buildings too. I am serious about this entire topic, and I'd love to discuss this directly with the P&Z members that are bringing these accusations, and we're going to talk about it some more at Downtown Commission.
I agree, and I feel like today we heard from the applicant that their project they're more proud of their project now than they were before they went through this process. And I haven't been on the DRC very long, but I've heard that from multiple applicants. The process, it takes time, but I feel like generally everyone wins. And so I don't, I'm not in favor of that.
Yeah, I think the suggestion has an underlying premise that there is um, public detriment rather than benefit
That's
of the
right.
design review.
That's exactly
And
right.
I think that's my major issue with it. And I just want to make a suggestion, and I have discussed this with the vice chair as well, but I'm curious whether if there's, when projects go through early assistance meetings, is there anyone from like representative from the city staff for design review, maybe suggesting earlier in the process what they've seen similar projects go through during design review? Because I could see that as potentially beneficial in avoiding projects feeling like they get blindsided when they're coming to design review, when they're further along in the process.
That's a good point.
Yeah, we're we're fairly new, right? We haven't been, DRC's not been up and running very long, and we're also finding our voice, and we're still all working on, I know some of you are working with us on things like revisions to the design guidelines, and we're trying our best to get more predictable and remove some of the guesswork on the part of potential applicants. That said, the earlier we can get in and have these discussions, obviously the better. Nobody's looking to extend the design time or burden a project, but I just disagree vehemently that that providing a community-based group of professionals in the design process is overall detrimental to both the cost and the value to the city of Asheville. I disagree with that vehemently. And that's
Especially when the compliance is voluntary.
100%.
We're talking about level 1, level 2, and if the compliance is voluntary, then what's it costing you? You might actually be able to improve your project, and all it's costing you is a little bit of extra time. I can't think of a single project that we have reviewed that hasn't improved. I
Well,
honestly can't.
I would also offer that the perspective, I think, is maybe a little ignorant of the process, as many of us are architects, that many of the projects we see are at a review stage, like the design professionals have output all their work to a certain point, and they are sharing it with owners, money people, and they're sharing it with us at the same time. So we're all involved in an essential step. It's not an extra step, it's an essential step. Now, the hour they might spend in the meeting is extra, but producing the documents and offering, being available for review, I mean, that's all just part of the process. And anyone that works in a design office or as a developer understands that these are check-in stages. And we've I feel like we've actually reviewed and approved some projects that were not finished. They were final review sets, and so we fit into the applicant's process rather than the other way around.
And the whole point of the DRC is we moved the review process out of the downtown commission, out of the riverfront commission, and put it in the hands of this group, which is supposed to be comprised primarily of professionals that does understand the process. And so we're not in here, we're not supposed to be mixing our policy disagreements with design issues. I think it's working very well. I'm sorry. I think our the attorney on the call wants to chat with us.
Yeah, Will, is it okay to open for public comment? It's not a formal.
Yeah, it's up to your discretion as chair, and I'll just note we also have another public comment person, I think the originator of this request, asking for public comment either now or at the end of the meeting. We can open up to general public comment too. So however you want to handle that is fine.
Okay. Jesse, if you'd like to make a comment, please go ahead. Open up. I guess I'm opening for public comment at 2:01 p.m.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, nobody asked me, but I do have some thoughts. Okay, I just got a pop-up message that was confusing me. Yeah, I'm interested in this topic. I'm kind of interested in, the legal technical details of, zoning type authority and how it's exercised. So I just wanted to let y'all know that if anyone wants to discuss this stuff with me directly, I would be more than happy to, have a discussion about it. I do think, in terms of my clients, one of the biggest difficulties is that, that it can potentially add multiple months to the timeline. And I don't think, how should I say this? I think design review is an important step, and our keeping the character of our downtown and encouraging high quality projects is very important. I think there may be some opportunities to speed up the efficiency of the review if and forgive me, I'm not familiar with the TRC process and whether DRC has any input in that, but it could be perhaps sped up a little bit if at the TRC stage, DRC, just gives a preliminary report on consistency with the guidelines before the applicant actually comes in front of DRC, because there is a back and forth that happens, but it would be possible for the applicant to anticipate some issues that maybe they didn't, if they had some notice of what those issues might be before they show up at the hearing. There may be some other ways to, to make things more efficient, but I'm not quite ready to spitball those right now. So anyway, I do think what you guys do is very valuable to our city. And, the best case for my career aspiration is to be a resource for my clients and a resource to my city. So anytime anyone wants to reach out to me individually, Will can give you my contact information. You can probably find it on the Allen Stall and Kilbourne website, and I'd be happy to hear from any of you.
Thank you, Jesse. And then we'll take the next comment, Will.
Sure, you can do that now or at the end, but we might as well do it now while we have public comment open.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna try to patch in the phone number again. I think I might have figured out my user error earlier, so hopefully make it work. So let's see. Caller, you should be able to speak
Hi,
on the meeting.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, come in.
Excellent. Hi, this is Jared Wheatley, calling in as a concerned citizen or thoughtful citizen, not necessarily concerned, but also am a commissioner on the Planning and Zoning Commission. And I just want to clarify some of these conversations a little bit. I love hearing the discussion and I love hearing the passion. This conversation I don't think is meant to be combative or to reduce anyone's value to our city or the community at large. I also agree that this commission has provided a tremendous amount of value, or has provided a tremendous amount of value to our city. For myself, being a weird technical person who happens to be a licensed general contractor and work in development and understand level 1 and 2 and 3 processes. the concern that I saw in the language is major project, which, for instance, a level 1 project today, I would contend that this committee is correct. It is a major project. It's in the traditional downtown core, which I think is distinctly different than other parts of our city and even different than other parts of the design review overlay. And why I'd just like to point out real quick, I can mention one project that this committee has reviewed, and they did no harm. It wasn't a bad, I'm not saying it was bad that it was reviewed, but it was level 1, and it was basically adoption of an old warehouse building down off of Swananoa River Road, or maybe Thompson Street. I can't remember exactly which street it was on. And there was definitely value added, okay? And also, the overlay is part of an area that does not have as much investment and does not have as much opportunity as the downtown core. And so I think it's okay and maybe prudent to review the language within the charter to make sure that it's clearly defined. And I think it's okay saying, you know, level 1 or even maybe potentially lower within the downtown core. And I think defining that is really important. And that's all I'm here for, to promote defining and clarifying, and then ensuring that those are aligned with the true public benefit of design review. With regard to affordable housing, my concern is actually a little bit different than design review committee itself. State general statutes actually limit that no affordable housing project, and their definition is 80% is any units that are deed restricted at 80% of AMI. Okay, the state says that harmony requirements cannot be subjected, and I've spoken with the North Carolina School of Government, and they're not sure that our requirement of design review committee, even being voluntary, is within the legal parameters of the general statute. And that's a concern for me because that's a potential point of litigation that I would not like to see our community go through. And so I really appreciate everyone's time here, and I've been observing the committee for quite a while, and you guys all do bring a tremendous amount of competency and value. So thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Is there any other public comment? Will?
There are no more public commenters on the.
Okay. So I'm going to close for public comment at 2:09. And then, Will, can you just clarify when we have public comment, what the procedure is?
Generally, as far as how we do it in the meetings, or like before meetings?
For our response or comment?
Oh, I mean, you're you're glad to just acknowledge the comments. You can ask follow-up questions if necessary if you want to. Usually the best form is not to get in a conversation with the commenter necessarily, but you're more than welcome to ask for clarification or ask questions to follow up to if you would like.
Okay, Ricardo, go ahead.
Not a question, but I just wanted to actually react to a couple of things that Commissioner Wheatley said. He's referencing the Senate Bill 105, Section 160D-703 zoning districts. This is the limitation that I spoke about during our pre-meeting. And the language on that actually says, for families or individuals with incomes below 80% of AMI. So I think the word below there is key. Projects that have that are this is to Michael's earlier point. The definition of affordable housing is a little bit fluid, and so where projects are proposing affordable housing at 80%, then this limitation doesn't apply because the limitation is for projects offering below 80% AMI. And the other point that I wanted to kind of react to was the same thing I said during the pre-meeting, where a project has conditional zoning, like the Riverside Drive project that we reviewed last time. It's conditional zoning, and we can impose conditions as, you know, not we DRC, but the city can impose conditions as they see fit. So it changes the equation when it's conditional zoning as well. But I just wanted to clarify that the language of the Senate bill is actually pointing to below 80%.
So just to clarify that even further, so if you had a 100-unit building and one of the units was 80% or below 80%, that would exclude review of that?
It would exclude the imposition of a harmony requirement.
So 99 units could piggyback onto one. So we could maybe see some cynical applications where somebody throws in one unit just to avoid a review, possibly, out of, say, a 100-unit building.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there's no language regarding minimums, percentages. No, it just says, and I'll just read it out completely. It's just a short paragraph. It's paragraph B1, limitations for parcels where multifamily structures are an allowable use. A local government may not impose a harmony requirement for permit approval if the development contains affordable housing units. It does say units, so it has to be at least two, for families or individuals with incomes below 80% of the area median income. So it would have to be at least two because it does say units.
The only project, and I'm just bringing this up for just in general, the only project that I know of since I've been on the committee that we reviewed was down on Swannanoa River, or across from Walmart. Is that, do you all remember that project?
Yeah, Ridge River. Yeah, I remember that one. Mm-hmm.
And that had affordable units. So I what I'm understanding is that maybe they weren't required to come to us.
It was mandatory review, voluntary compliance.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the scale of that project? How many units?
You know, I'm not.
Michael, it was just a typical river. It's across from Walmart, beside Aldi, in that area. I'm struggling to remember how many units. It probably wasn't. I know it wasn't 100. It was probably more like 40. I can't remember. It was a decent sized project. Three stories.
One on Governor's View Road.
That sounds right.
70 units.
70. Okay.
So the thinking is that, let's say half the units were affordable or whatever, that coming before the committee added expense to the developer, which got passed on to the homeowners or renters or whatever. And so all we could do is quantify, $1,000 maybe an extra, time it took. And that's
I'll do you one better on that one, because I remember that project, and we actually our suggestions, our recommendations, I think, reduced the amount of masonry that they had, for example. Mm-hmm. So I think in the end, their project probably ended up costing less to build.
And looking a lot better.
And it definitely looked a lot better.
It was pretty.
Yeah, so and I mean, I look at the Duke substation compared to what they were proposing initially. This is going to be pennies.
Yeah.
Well, let's just do the math. Let's say there were 40 units, just because we don't know for sure. Let's say it costs an extra $1,000. amortized over 40 units on the scale of a project like that. I mean, it seems like we're chasing pennies here. And if our goal is affordable housing, this is like a wasted effort. Like this is not part of why housing's expensive is because of a review. So
Hmm.
I think we're getting
It's just like
distracted. Let's keep our eyes on the prize, which is what are the ways that, and it's not. I don't think it's public policy. I think the costs in housing is in the private sector.
It can be, Michael. There's some, you and I have both been involved in projects where the marginal cost, that last little bit, is what pushed it over the no go, and that is what people are talking about. So I think I think Sasha's coming to talk to us about the affordable housing plan for the downtown district. And one of the things I've seen people floating around is a basically a housing overlay similar to our hotel overlay. Is there something? Is there a set of rules that we can come up with and do we want more housing and we actually want more the so-called missing middle. Maybe there's more than one housing over there. There's like a missing middle housing overlay, and there's even a multifamily. I'd love to see more multifamily kind of projects going on in downtown where we have all the infrastructure to support them. But I think that's a topic that we can have and we can move the needle a little bit. But to your point, sending an architect to meet with us for 2 or 3 hours is not what's pushing the housing cost over the project. And I would posit that our the kind of things that we do, we're generally working with the applicant to try to show them, especially on a housing project. Commissioner Wheatley referenced the project down in the RAD over there off of, was it Thompson? Just a
Yeah,
long
that
low
wasn't
building.
a housing project, was it?
No, it wasn't. It was I can't. It was.
It
I can't
was a
remember now.
window. It was a
Yeah, that's
window
right.
contractor,
That's
and
right.
yeah, a couple of commercial spaces,
Yeah,
but like
Tad's
warehouse
project.
industrial spaces.
And I felt like we helped them. There was a couple of things that I mean, I guess we probably asked the applicant to do things that add cost, but a lot of times we ask the applicant to do things that end up subtracting cost. I mean, Duke is going to pay less for what they're doing than what they originally proposed.
And it's voluntary.
Yeah.
They're not
Exactly.
required. All they're doing is getting more options and information.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I am sympathetic to the idea as an architect that nobody likes to be told what to do by a bunch of people they don't know, and that nobody likes to go through this kind of process and have their stuff, filleted in front of a crowd. That's not necessarily fun, but we're also design professionals, and we know that that's the game. This is what I get paid to do, is to have these kind of things on behalf of my clients. And generally speaking, when I'm doing this, and I'm doing this in Greenville or Knoxville or Columbia or wherever I'm working, and I'm doing this on the other side of the table, while I'm doing it in the Asheville too. It's part of the process. I can't say that I like increase my fee. Oh no, I've got to do design review. Maybe for HRC, but not for design review. Yeah.
So was this thrown out by one person as something for us to explore? Is this something we have to make a decision on or a formal statement on? Okay,
No, it was just a discussion topic.
got it.
Well, I want to add something before most of y'all were there. Maybe Brian, you were on the commission back when it was part of Downtown Commission, but when we reviewed the Wicked Weed brewing facility on, I don't know what that street is, big brick thing. It's on Buxton, I guess, corner of Buxton. Were you around for that, Brian?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was essentially a manufacturing facility. They came in and proposed essentially a brewing production facility. And one of our reviews was like, where do the people drink their beer? And he was like, no, we're just producing beer here. And we said, well, there's a room on the street level. He said, that's for the truckers that are picking up and dropping off supplies. That's their lounge. And we're like, don't you think you want a tasting room on your facility downtown? And I remember the applicant looked at his engineers, I don't remember architects, and said, yeah, why don't we have a tasting room? So our review added the tasting room not only in the ground level, but they added it on the top. And that building is so much a more lively and vital building because we pushed the applicant to consider something beyond kind of a narrow vision for his production facility. Anyways, I think about that every time I walk by that building.
All right. Well, are there any other comments or?
Let's do it this way. So, Will, to the comment, so DRC, we don't necessarily set our own policy. We can, I guess, send a resolution or a comment to City Council, but City Council is the one that established our charter to begin with before any of us were here. And they're the ones that decide what we have purview over. And they're the ones that decide what level our purview kicks in at and which parts of the city we have purview over. We are currently understand that we are fulfilling that charter, and I am open to a discussion on how we treat the edge condition kind of applications, but I have not seen evidence that would indicate that we need to make big moves to our current charter and our current scope.
I think that's accurate. Yep, I concur with that.
I concur.
I agree.
I don't know that we need to have a vote. Will, Christina, I don't know.
No, I don't think we should be voting on this. I think this is just a discussion topic.
Would it make sense, Christina, as chair, for you to draft up kind of a position statement reflecting that?
Sure.
I just
I'd
did.
be happy to. Yeah. I'll send it to Brian for review. All right. Well, if there's no other further comments on that, do we
I have a quick
any...
question for Will. I think that the River Commission at one point talked about drafting a statement similar about something completely different, and it had to be voted on because it was representing the commission. So if Christina does draft something up, do we have to vote on it to make sure that she, it's representative of, because it's not just coming from her?
Let's do this. I'll basically try to rewatch this and say what I just said, and we'll have it as a position statement or something that we can vote on at our next meeting.
Agreed.
Okay. So we'll add it as an agenda item. Right?
Can I just circle back on that Riverside project, which I think kind of prompted some of this discussion to some degree? That for those of you that weren't aware, and I know I've sent out an email, P&Z did approve the project that we unanimously rejected for a variety of reasons. It goes on to council at the August 27th meeting, I think. Is that right, Ricardo?
Yeah.
And if you did not watch the P&Z review and approval, they basically highlighted that the applicant is asking to exceed the allowable limits in the zoning code, and that the affordable housing bonus was, they asked the applicant to use the affordable housing bonus, and the applicant chose not to, and then they approved it. And so I think in terms of affordable housing, if I'm a little bit worried, I'm just speaking personally, I'm a little bit worried that if we're approving projects without them offering public benefits in the form of affordable housing, we're kind of short circuiting that. And that to me is concerning. And one follow up is I hear that maybe they have since added affordable housing, a few units. Did anybody hear that?
No, I haven't heard that.
On the project always, well, the project they added 5% at 80 when they came back to us for the formal review.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, originally there I don't think there was any in it, but when we reviewed it, it had 5% at 80.
5%. Okay.
Yeah, at 80.
The project from the original proposal that was approved a few years ago has the same percentage, but since there's more units, there will be a higher absolute number of affordable units. One thing that's changed since the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting going to City Council is the duration of the affordability is proposed to be reduced from, I believe, 20 years to 10 years. That's a change that City Council is going to be reviewing as well. But as far as the number of units, it's being, I guess, increased since the previously approved conditional zoning, but the percentage is the same.
And Michael, to your point, the zoning that P and Z. So there was an issue with the setback and the height that was incorrect in the Muni code that we were all using. So the published code was incorrect from what was formally approved in the minutes by council. Is my what what I understand. Will, is that correct? There were specific provisions in the published Muni code that we were all relying on that was incorrect.
Yeah, I mean, it was saying that there was a step back required and the height limits were lower than what they actually are.
Right.
So that was, they just had the incorrect graphic in there in that form section. So,
but that was originally, but I think you all planning staff caught the mistake. So when we reviewed it, as I'm understanding it, no, but it's still exceeding.
The setback and the height, when we reviewed it, we were applying an incorrect standard.
But it still exceeded the correct standard.
It still needs a technical modification to the zoning.
That's right.
They could increase the affordability and be within the bonus densities for the height and the stories, but they're not pursuing that option. They're just asking for a modification to that height limit.
Yes, and they are they asking for a modification for the 200-foot rule for the breaks in the building?
Yes.
So they're asking for a modification for that, not just a. Okay. Because that part has not changed.
So,
I think, your approval is more based on the riverfront design guidelines and other accompanying plans and studies over the years that, so it's not, I don't think there's any real fault in your review. It wasn't like staff denying something based on the UDO and then the UDO is actually wrong and, we're just nuts and bolts, black and white. You all have the riverfront design guidelines to refer to, which is the kind of your guiding document. So that's right. That wasn't incorrectly cited or provided. So your review is still valid.
Will, isn't the 200-foot rule also a UDO requirement? It's not just in the design. It's not just in the RAD document. It's in the UDO.
Oh yeah, that's UDO. That's RAD form code and UDO requirement. Yep.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
So are we all still in agreement to have a follow-up meeting prior to make some clarifications?
Oh, I guess we're doing that now.
That's what I was like.
Sorry.
In order to skip it ahead of our next regularly scheduled meeting would be to create a position to influence council's vote. And I don't know that we can jump through all the legal hoops to do that. So my position is we all just as individuals express our feelings about design review, affordable housing, and those kinds of issues, share those with council as they vote on this issue that is at the final stage of the process. And then in a future meeting, you know, we take on more strategic look at it.
Is everyone else okay with that approach?
I mean, until we clarify exactly what it is we want to do and why we're in a hurry to do it, I'm not sure where we're going with this.
I want to be careful that we're not lobbying council as as DRC or as members of the DRC, and pitting ourselves against P and Z per se.
Mhm.
Let's be real careful, folks. I think if you want to send a clarification or something on an individual basis to council, this is what we understood, this is why I voted on it, and the way I did, that's probably okay, but it does begin to, I'm not sure what I think about that. I'm starting to wish Janice was here. Legal, you know, that we had something from legal on like, what do we do here?
Yeah,
Will, what do you think?
I was just sharing with the rest of my commission members that I've been kind of tracking this project, and there's some things that are concerning to me, and I'm going to share that with my representatives on council. And, you know,
I think that's fair, Michael.
Yeah,
I think that's
reminding
fair.
you of where it is in the process, and it's coming up for a vote. So,
and we can provide staff some clarifying guidance in the meantime. I mean, you know, it's perfectly legal to give public comment as a citizen and a resident of Asheville. You don't lose that right when you join a board and commission. You know, the optics might be a little straining, but I don't think there's any legal issue with it. But you know, I can check in with folks. Like I said, we're kind of in our review process as the project heads to city council in a couple weeks. So I can check in with leadership and get some good direction about what would be the best way to kind of handle this.
and part of my position is kind of standing up for the form-based code. I love form-based codes, and I haven't gotten to review a whole lot of projects using the form-based code, and I love doing it. And I'm just going to stand up for the form-based code, essentially.
All right. Well, I am still pregnant and starving, so I'm going to suggest that we adjourn. And yeah. Great. This meeting is adjourned at 2:34. I hope you all have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.